Is Congress close to a deal on rescuing the nation's financial system? Hi, I'm Chris Casteel at the Oklahoman. I'm here with Oklahoma Congressman Frank Lucas, Republican from Cheyenne, and a senior member of the House Financial Services Committee, which is now crafting the bill that Congress may vote on in the next few days to bail out the nation's troubled financial services. Congressman, President Bush addressed the nation last night with some pretty stark language about where the economy is right now and what would happen if Congress doesn't take some action to intervene in this situation. I mean, is what he did? Do you agree with what he said last night? Is it a very dire situation for the U.S. economy right now?
I think, Chris, the president was correct. He was to the point. There are major challenges out there. This property boom, primarily on the east and west coast, that became a bubble, that sucked in so many dollars, that created so many of these securitized mortgages that are now owned by banks and insurance companies, pension funds, many investors, many entities across the country. With the boom that's become a bust and a bubble, and now that's created uncertainty in the market. Banks don't trust each other. Financial institutions don't trust each other because no one is sure, Chris, what those securitized mortgages are worth. And that means the liquidity market, in a simple put, the flow of money from institution to institution, bank to bank, has ground to a total halt. And that's what's brought on this crisis.
What changed last week? I mean, what happened that day, Thursday, when the Federal Reserve Chairman and the Treasury Secretary went to Capitol Hill, briefed those congressional leaders? They all came out Thursday night almost looking like they'd seen a ghost. What happened that day that caused this the need for this bill?
Chris, I can't put my particular finger on it, but there are rumors that perhaps China removed $30 billion from the money markets that day. There are rumors that a number of foreign banks and financial institutions have announced, starting from that day forward, they will no longer loan money to U.S. banks and U.S. institutions. All of those issues. But a lot of the folks back home say, what the heck? What does this matter to me?
Right.
The situation is this, Chris. We operate on borrowed capital in this country. We operate on day-to-day cash flow credit, liquidity from one institution to the other. If that credit dries up, then the question becomes, can American business move forward? When you put your credit card in the machine to charge something, will your credit limit still be where it was last week? Will it have been lowered? When you go to put your ATM machine in a slot to get money out, will you get so many dollars versus everything you want? If you've got money in a pension fund or a 401k, as this pressure comes down, what does that do to the value of your assets? Now, I know my constituents want their money protected. I know my constituents are suspicious of what goes on the east and west coast. I share that point of view. I don't want any additional regulation in my life or other people's lives. But the bottom line on this is there's a bipartisan effort underway. The president's pushing this to try and come up with a solution to address this liquidity crisis before it spreads to the rest of the country. I've not seen a bill yet. I understand there may be something that's 40 pages long. It may involve potentially buying $700 billion in mortgages that no one wants to hold over a period of time and then sell back into the market to recoup the Treasury's expense. But the bottom line is this has not played itself out. I'm waiting to actually see a bill. I want to make sure that my constituents never have the kind of economic hard times that we had in the 1980s with the twin ag and energy property bust.
In Oklahoma.
And it took 15 years for farmland prices and oil and gas property prices to return to pre-crash levels. And we also have, Chris, in my district, about 20% of my constituents are 70 years or older. A lot of those folks remember the Great Depression, what that did to them. I don't want that to happen on my watch. But the bottom line is I haven't seen a bill yet. I believe there's a problem. I'm waiting to see what the bill looks like. But as always, you have to do what's in the best interest of your folks back home. And Chris, they're calling the office.
I've heard that from all the offices, and I understand that one of the primary concerns of the Oklahomans calling is that the Wall Street executives don't become enriched by this, that they are not being bailed out, and I assume that that's your concern too. And I guess that there's a concession on the part of the Bush administration to get some language in the bill along those lines.
There will be language along those lines. Now, I will also tell you one of the things that's caused me great concern is rumors that many of the Democrats that I serve with in Congress would like to have requirements that any company that participates in this sort of stuff, any financial institution, would have to give up part of its equity. I'm a little concerned about any bill to the federal government, in essence, to the Treasury. I'm a little concerned about nationalizing the financial industry in this country. But the bottom line remains, we haven't seen the bill yet. We'll see what happens. Now, I tend to believe, in all fairness, as we speak this moment, you and I, that probably nothing will happen. But the markets will drive this issue. If the markets decide that nothing's going to happen, and if they really do what Mr. Bernanke and Mr. Paulson have implied they could do, and we see a 1 or 2 or 3,000 point move downward on the stock market, then this bill may get enough votes in Congress to pass it through. But as I said, I'm listening to my folks. I'm paying attention to their concerns. I'm trying to respond in that way, but this is a heck of a problem.
Last question now. Earlier, you know, they've come and asked you guys for money to bail out Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, AIG, Bear Stearns. All kinds of steps have been taken that they thought this would do it. How confident are you that whatever you guys do in the next few days is going to solve this problem that we've been hearing about for so long now? That's
the real question, Chris. If the Secretary of Treasury and the Federal Reserve Board Chairman get their way, potentially up to $700 billion, if they get their way and that doesn't stop the situation, that doesn't bring it to a conclusion, then I don't know what happens next. I mean, there's a limit to what the Federal Reserve can fund. Right. There's a limit to what the Treasury can fund. But the bottom line, once again, remains. The folks back home in Oklahoma want their pocketbook protected. They don't want to take care of a bunch of people on the East and West Coast. But they also, I think, when they think about it, want to protect their pension funds. They want to make sure their money is safe in their savings accounts. They want the country to move forward, and that's what I'm trying to balance. Taking care of my good folks and doing what my good people want done.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming in. I know you've had some long days and nights in this past week, and well, hopefully you guys will find something to agree on in the next few days.
Exactly.
Get back to campaign.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and look for more on this in the Oklahoman.